Hello, everyone, and we're live talking about adrenal fatigue today. Before I get going, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear us okay. So let me do a quick sound check and confirm that you guys can hear me. Da-da-da-da. We're talking about a really important adrenal, hormonal imbalance today, and that is adrenal fatigue. I can hear you. Yay! Okay, awesome. That's all we wanted to hear. So, hi everyone. I can see there's more and more of you coming on. Have your questions ready for a topic we are talking about today, which is so important, and that's adrenal fatigue, right? Robin Keith, hello there. Tell us where you're from. Introduce yourself. Wenda Cullen. Yes, I'm not sure what the yes is as a response to. Let's just wait for a little bit bigger audience, and then I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna talk to you about symptoms, about consequences of adrenal fatigue, about causation, about, of course, how to reverse it, right? Because that's what we're here for, to help ourselves. One thing I want to tell you guys, if you're on my mailing list, watch out on an email on Monday. It's coming out. It's going to be 25% off all Anne-Marie Johnny's skincare products, which is like, because the product is just so amazing. I always talk about it. Candice is saying, I wish I could watch live, but she's on a vacation in Santa Monica. Very nice. We'll catch the recording later. Awesome, Candice. No problem. Teresa from Chicago, and one day saying, yes, I can hear you. Great. From Montebello, California. Laura. Hello, Laura Garcia. Yeah, so, one of the things that's going on in the hormonal imbalance world is definitely the whole adrenal fatigue thing, right? Real serious issue. And I'm wondering, how many of you here actually know that you have adrenal problems? Do you suspect having it? Have you been diagnosed, or do you actually know you have it? While you're typing your answers away, I just want to tell you, I'm using this new treatment in my hair. You can see my hair is kind of greasy today. I was kind of like, oh, this is embarrassing, but I decided to roll with it. I'm using hip rose oil as a leave-in conditioner. I'm testing that out as part of our recipes for a new program that I'm rolling out called Herbs for Balance. So if you've done the cooking program, then the herbal program is going to be a really great one just to add on to your portfolio. We got about 140 recipes coming up for like bringing just herbs in form of shampoos and skincare products and lotions and balms and pestos and drinks and concoctions and things like that. Ursula is saying she does. Yeah, I'm wondering who knows that you've got adrenal fatigue going on. And do you know if you have it? If you don't, then we're going to talk about the symptoms. So, one of the, hi Andre, tell us where you're from. Yeah, so why don't we just get started with, the symptoms of adrenal fatigue. And I'm wondering, Robin is saying I was diagnosed 4 years ago, but I don't know if I still have it. There's a way to know. Okay, great. That's a great question. Let's talk about that as well. And so keep the questions coming. Today I want to focus on adrenal fatigue. Let's just, I tend to keep the questions kind of focused on a particular topic because hormones is a big topic and we can be like going all over the place with it, right? So I kind of want to be a little bit more focused. Susan Bourne is saying, me stage 3 adrenal fatigue here. Yeah. Hi, Jennifer from Santa Cruz. A lot of California people. Oh, somebody from New Jersey. Hi there, Jana. So we have a bigger audience now. So why don't I just jump straight into it? Why do I get adrenaline rush for no reason? That's Mahrush, is it? Ibrahim is asking. Yeah, adrenaline rush, if it feels like you're getting heart palpitations and stuff like that, you might want to talk to your doctor about testing your thyroid, and especially overactive thyroid can be causing that kind of feeling. It's not so much the adrenals they won't be really giving you panic attacks per se. It's more of a thyroid related issue. And Heather is saying, hello from Orlando, Florida. Highly suspect I have it. I'm trying to do anything I can to rebalance even before I see my doctor. Great. Terry saying, should we stop coffee? We're going to talk about that. So let's jump in. So let's talk about symptoms of adrenal fatigue. What is that? One of the challenges with adrenal fatigue is that Western medicine, the way we know it, doesn't recognize that as a condition. They only recognize it when you have Cushing's or Addison's disease, which basically means, did you guys know that JF Kennedy, for example, had Addison's disease, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks the adrenal glands so much so that they stop producing cortisol. So JFK was actually on steroids his entire life, and what most people don't know is that he was in braces, like holding up his upper body because his back was so destroyed by the steroids that for some reason he wasn't using granulars. I'm not sure why. And so they were giving him steroids that dissolved his joint so much so that he was on braces his entire life and holding up his upper body through his hips. Quite amazing. And yet he was this man who was working 14, 20-hour days, relentlessly being on his feet. And so kudos to him for just that amazing resilience that the man had. So, and then Cushing's, on the other hand, is when the adrenals overproduce cortisol, and that's when you start going a little crazy with too much cortisol. So both of these conditions are autoimmune diseases, and Western medicine doesn't recognize anything in between those conditions at all. So you don't have to have Addison's or Cushing's at one of those extremes in order not to feel good. And you can have, so functional medicine, integrative medicine, holistic medicine does recognize adrenal fatigue. So let's talk about the symptoms first, because I think that's, do this zap your energy? Don't know yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about symptoms, because many of you are asking about symptoms and you're not sure. So let's go through these two stages. There's actually more stages, but I'm just going to simplify it and say there are two main groups of adrenal fatigue, stage 2 and stage 3. Stage 2 is when it all starts, and it kind of starts before that, but then you end up with some days your cortisol is high, some days, some parts of the day could be high, some parts of the day could be low, some days could be low, some days could be high. It's all over the map, right? And some of the symptoms is that you do get that adrenaline rush, but not like the way with the thyroid with heart palpitations, but it's more like you're constantly running from task to task and you cannot slow down, right? That's one of the symptoms of stage 2. I'm talking about stage 2 adrenal fatigue right now. Another one is feeling jittery and unfocused and moody, especially when hungry. This could also be due to hypoglycemia, which is also one of the underlying causes of adrenal fatigue. We're going to talk about that. But yeah, and then the other one that is a huge one for adrenal fatigue stage 2 is feeling really tired, but sometimes also wired. And it's a terrible place to be in. I remember feeling this way when I was living in Shanghai. This is when I really had like a full-blown adrenal fatigue. When you come home from work and you're tired, but yet you're so wired, you just cannot slow down, close your eyes and fall asleep. Horrible feeling, because you want that rest, yet you just can't rest. Sugar cravings is another one. Another thing it would be, a struggle to calm down and slow down. So that it kind of connects to that running around from task to task that I was talking about earlier. Another thing that can happen is you have a difficulty falling asleep. Or you wake up in the middle of the night and you just can't go back to sleep. A lot of times what happens, the adrenals will kick in and produce over an excess of cortisol in the middle of the night, and that's what wakes you up. Some people report that having things like, for example, feeling lightheaded when you get off a sofa, that's a huge one. One of the hormones the adrenals are producing is called aldosterone, which is a hormone that regulates your blood pressure, right? So when your adrenals are getting pooped out, aldosterone doesn't get produced sufficiently, and that's what your body is not able to cope. Like when you rise, right, from a seated position or from a lying position, your body is not able to cope with having to increase the blood pressure for you to cope up with the movement, and that's when you start feeling lightheaded. So I'm wondering, well, another couple of things that come to mind right away is having dark circles under the eyes could be a sign of adrenal fatigue, although that could also be a symptom of toxicity. That's another thing. So who here, when I'm when I'm talking about these symptoms. Who feels that you might be having that? Let's see. So we've got Paige saying, okay. Sue is saying, I'm always tired, but I cannot fall asleep, and cold hands and feet with headaches. So Sue, cold hands, and a lot of times you have to remember when you have adrenal fatigue, a lot of the time we also have other hormonal imbalances going on. And I'm going to talk about this in a second, why adrenals can really pull down your entire hormonal balance here in just a second. Cold hands, feeling cold, get your thyroid checked. That's a classic symptom of thyroid issues. The thyroid is a speed pedal, if you think about it, in your body, as well as your heat modulator in the body. Dark circles under the eyes, yeah. Kristen is saying, I have all the symptoms. Virginia is saying, me, yeah, I have trouble staying asleep, Robin is saying. So, and I think, honestly, if you're a mom, if you're working, if you are living the normal American life, a Western life, I don't really know that many people who don't have adrenal fatigue. The question is, how much is it impacting you? And what I want to focus on today is really what can we do about it? Only sugar cravings and moody sometimes. Yeah. Thoughts on taking prescription cortisol versus natural adrenal support, Francine is asking. I'm going to talk about solutions in just a second. So just muscle pains, Susan is saying. Yeah, it can be one of the symptoms, Susan, but honestly, muscle pains can be, pain is such a huge topic, right? I mean, could be food sensitivities, could be Lyme, could be, even people like getting off sugar and gluten, nightshade vegetables, for example, regain or totally lose their sense of pain. I have all the symptoms, thyroid test came back normal, Kat Clore is saying. Hey Kat, I'm wondering are you new to the community? Because if you're new, then I would suggest dig a little bit more about thyroid, and that my thyroid numbers are normal is like a joke in the thyroid community, because it really is an issue of a lot of thyroid conditions not being picked up. So I would suggest for you to check out thyroiddietcoach.com, get my starter kit, download all the tests that should be done, look at the functional medicine ranges versus the traditional ones, and then compare and see whether you really are okay, or whether you've got a complete set of tests done. So let's talk about, the consequences. Oh, no, sorry. Let me just move on to actually adrenal fatigue stage 3. Stage 3, which is really, really important. Stage 3 happens when you went through stage 2 for a very long time, and we're going to talk about causes in a second, and your adrenals are so tired of being up and down and dealing with all that stress coming from all these different sources, that they finally go to a place where they're just too tired to produce sufficient cortisol. And that's called stage 3, and you're feeling, at this point, you're feeling severe sense of fatigue or burnout. It's not the kind of tired that you feel tired like at the end of the day when you had a long day working. It's the kind of tired that you feel completely deflated, like life has just left your body. And some of you might know what I'm talking about, because it's not a normal fatigue. Fatigue is like a total burnout combined with you just don't give a damn anymore about the great things that used to get you excited. They don't get you excited anymore. That's a huge symptom of adrenal fatigue stage 3. You're craving salt. That's because your adrenals are too tired to produce aldosterone. So you're craving salt to bring up the blood pressure in your body naturally, which is actually a good thing, and it's okay to surrender to that, have good quality salt like the pink Himalayan salt or sea salt. Feeling very negative about life in general. That's a huge one. When who here has experienced the kind of thing where you've gone through a lot of stress and then coming to an end of this and you just don't give a damn about a lot of things. Which brings me also to another point, that the adrenals also manage your immune system. So one of the things that happens with adrenal fatigue is that when your adrenals are overworking for so long, they're not able to modulate sufficiently the immune system. And so a lot of times people with adrenal fatigue come down with colds really quickly. You don't recover from colds quick enough. Like, typical will be 2-3 days, you're kind of back on your feet, right? People with adrenal fatigue will take like 10 days, 12 days, 14 days To recover from something you know you should have taken a short time. When you have a wound that wouldn't heal easily, that could be another sign of adrenal fatigue. Again, it goes back to the efficiency of the immune system. Another thing of stage 3 is crying for no reason, right? Have you found, who here has found yourself like you just cry and you don't know why? Adrenal fatigue. Physically, you're having far less stamina, especially in the afternoons and evenings, as compared to what you had before. If you feel that, you know, and that kind of stamina I'm also talking about is like you need those 2 cups of coffee to get you going in the morning, because otherwise, and in the afternoon, because otherwise you are just completely sucked out of energy, right? You have a decreased problem-solving skills, something that you used to, you know, be fairly, you know, skilled at and solving problems. You're not as good at it anymore, right? You have a decreased stress tolerance for things, like things that, you know, adversities happens in life all the time, and you were able to storm through it, not storm, but like sail through it. Right now, it just feels like everything is a hit, right? Everything is just amplified. And also other things that could be hair loss, you know, mild depression, lower sex drive, all of those things come together. So I'm just gonna pause for a second and take a look at it. That's so what happened to me, Jennifer, saying, Susan X is saying all the time, well, you're in the right place then. We're having this conversation. Well, a lot of people saying me, yep, yes, very sensitive, me, well, a lot of me's, okay, totally. Yeah, the apathy is horrible. Virginia is saying, I hear you, sister, because that's just like, it's like a living a life that's not a life. It's like living a dead life, isn't it? I totally hear you. And, you know, and I say this because I suffered from adrenal fatigue for a very long time, and I had no idea that's what it was. So I want to share with you some solutions, because it really is an important symptom to take care of, well, condition to take care of. But, you know, one is because all of you are suffering here with these kind of conditions, which really, really sucks, right? But on the other hand, you also, I need you to appreciate the fact that adrenals and high cortisol, low cortisol levels can also pull down all your other hormones down with it. The biggest thing is, Marcella is saying my hair has no shine at all. That could be also due to the thyroid. Etoria is saying, what's the symptoms? Hey, Etoria, I just spent the past 15 minutes talking about it. So what you could do is go to hormonesbalance.com/quiz. And Lisa, my assistant, who's here with us on the call today, she's going to post the quiz link to on my website. So you can take the quiz and see whether is that you. And a lot of times people say, hey, I've got stage 2 and stage 3 at the same time. Is it possible? Absolutely. You just have low adrenals part of the day, high adrenals the other part of the day, and that's very normal. So why are adrenals so important in cortisol? Number one, excess cortisol creates, too much of it is a highly inflammatory hormone, which creates inflammation in the entire body, right? And, you know, today we see inflammation as the underlying cause of all hormonal imbalances. Not just hormonal, actually all chronic diseases. So all around it's an issue. I'm just gonna point to 2 other things. I wanna talk about solutions more today and what's causing it. So 2 main things that is happening with high cortisol is that, number one, there is something called a pregnenolone steal, which means that the body has to make a decision whether do I make enough progesterone so that you sleep well, you get pregnant, you are calm, you're thinking straight, right? You have beautiful hair, etc. You can reproduce, or do I give her enough cortisol, because it's the same pathway. Pregnenolone is a precursor hormone that produces progesterone or cortisol, and there's a pathway that has to decide, or do I give her enough cortisol so she can get through the stress she's going through and survive? And as humans, we are built in a way that is always going to be survival is going to always win. This is the reason why women who are stressed can't get pregnant a lot of the time, is because of the pregnenolone steal. So the other thing that happens when you have high cortisol levels a lot of the time, it interferes with the conversion of the T4 hormone to T3. So for those of you here on thyroid medication like Synthroid, or we use it in Nitrothyroid or whatever, liver, it doesn't really matter. The conversion, you're taking a T4, maybe with a combination of T3, you know, the T4 needs to be converted in the liver and the gut to T3 that gives you beautiful hair, sharp mind, good quality skin, gives you warmth, ability to lose weight, right? Convert fat to energy. And guess what? When you have high cortisol level, that conversion of T4 to T3 can be compromised. So what I'm saying all in all is that high dysfunctional adrenals, high cortisol levels or low cortisol level can really pull everything down, including, as I mentioned before, your immune system. So who here has like adrenal fatigue, but also I want to ask you, who here has like Hashimoto's, celiac, fibromyalgia, MS, even psoriasis is an autoimmune response. Alopecia, which is local baldness, you know, on the head. I'm going to take a sip of water while you guys are typing away. So what is Hashi? A lot of people with Hashis. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, again, adrenals are not going to, when your adrenals are on fire, it's never going to help your immune system, because the adrenals are also partly responsible for modulating your adrenals are also modulating your immune system. So if the adrenals are tired, for example, the immune system is always going to be very suppressed. Let's talk about causes, because, you know, I think knowing the cause is knowing half, you know, knowing the causes and knowing half, winning half the battle, right? Because once you know what's causing it, when you eliminate it, then, you know, that fire, that destruction that is causing adrenal fatigue needs to stop. We will talk about solutions in just in the next 10-15 minutes. But if you don't address where the stress is coming from, then solutions itself is not going to help. And I'll be honest with you, adrenal fatigue is one of the hardest hormonal imbalances to treat, because there isn't a pill. There are some supplements and herbs I want to talk to you about, but popping those while you are stressed out, while you have infections going on, while you're eating crap food, while you're living off coffee, while you're not sleeping, that supplement on adrenals is not going to help. I just want to make this really, really clear. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so hard to treat, is that unlike like estrogen dominance or, you know, PCOS, where you're taking care of your liver and your gut and estrogens, and you're taking care of your sugar levels to address PCOS, it is, you know, it's very food related, which a lot of women can get their head around. But when it comes to adrenal fatigue, you've got to address actually your whole life in some ways. And that's the hard part. But so hear this, and I know you guys are here because you're really proactive, you're really smart. You are not looking for quick fixes and gimmicks, and that's not what I'm here to give you. Because if you're looking for like, give me the 2 herbs, then you might as well drop off, because I'm not going to do that, because they don't exist. There are herbs that will help your adrenals, but they are not going to reverse adrenal fatigue. So let's talk about causation here. You know, the biggest one is probably not surprising for you guys, is that you have been having a lot of stress for a very long time. And when I talk about stress, it's a couple of sources of it. It could be external, because of a lousy job, because of an unhappy relationship, whether it's marriage, whether it's with your parents, whether it's with a family. You know, and then that's one part of it, right? Another source of stress can be self-created. You know, have you guys heard, maybe some of you here might declare yourself, pronounce yourself, you know, the perpetual warrior, as in not like warrior, like fighter, but like the person who worries all the time. I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about my husband's job. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about money. And, you know, and a lot of times there is a reason to worry, because like the husband is about to lose a job. But many women, I see a lot of people who live their life from a place of fear rather than from a place of abundance and embracing what they have and what's working for them. So, you know, so stress is a huge component. I'm not gonna go into like how to manage all of this, because we don't have the time for it, and I just want to cover so many things. But I just want you to bring a real sense of appreciation and ask yourself today. In fact, what I encourage you to do is pull out a piece of paper, and today, after this call, do a list of all the things that have been stressing you out massively, right? And they've been going on for a long time. Because let me tell you, adrenal fatigue doesn't happen after, 2 weeks of something stressful. Adrenal fatigue happens after months of being subjected to something stressful, whether it's self-created or whether it's inflicted on us. You might not be able to quit your job tomorrow if your boss is an asshole. You might not be, in a place yet of really deciding whether your long-term relationship with your partner is the right one. But being aware that, for example, let's just hypothetically say here, your partner is a source of depletion. He's not supportive of the changes. He is undermining you. There's a lot of negativity. There is uncertainty in relationship. I want you to start thinking about it. How is that contributing towards your adrenal fatigue? Okay, so that is about stress that I want to talk about currently going on. However, there's one more type of stress I want to talk about, which is totally not my area, but I want to mention this for you to look at. This is trauma from the past. And I have seen women who I would work with them for a year and a half sometimes, and we're making like incremental changes, but it's not the kind of change I was hoping for, and neither was the client, until sometimes we discover there's something deeper that's going on. And when I say trauma in the past, I'm talking about stuff like sexual abuse, having grown up with alcoholic parents, abandonment, narcissism, sociopaths, whatever was that in your past, that has been happening. The question is, how is that manifesting today in your life? It can be contributing in a huge way towards adrenal fatigue. And I have to tell you, this is something that you need to take up with a specialist, whether it's working through it, whether it's through EMDR, whether it's somatic experiencing, whether with a shrink, whatever is the right kind of team you want to put together and whatever resonates with you. I would strongly encourage you, if trauma is something you experienced in the past, you need to resolve it in order to move on with your health. And I can tell you, I've had a lot of clients in the past who, by resolving past trauma, their health moved forward significantly as well. Okay, so that's about that. Let's talk about other causations, which is, so stress is really a huge one, but on the other hand, the other reasons could be, what I see a lot of the time is stress that's coming from digestive issues, right? So when you have perpetual, bloating, constipation, your digestion is really struggling. If you have digestive infections, like for example, SIBO, or you've got parasite infections, right? Believe it or not, that physical stress can also be that digestive stress can also be contributing towards adrenal fatigue. So, digestion really is the epicenter of your entire health. If you haven't done the Cooking for Balance program with us, do the workshop first and see whether it's the right fit for you. In a Cooking for Balance workshop, I talk about how to do the elimination diet, which is hugely anti-inflammatory, that helps you recover your digestive system, and that helps to lower the adrenals, lower the inflammation that causes adrenal fatigue as well. Another one that can be a cause of huge stress is overexercising. I cannot tell you how many women, because I have a history in sports, and so there was a time when I was coaching, I've had a lot of clients who were coming to me who were either marathon runners or they were, personal trainers, right? And that was a huge demographic that was really grappling with adrenal fatigue without knowing it. It was because of overexercising. So, sometimes it's just the perfect storm, right? Of having stress at work, stress in a relationship, money stress, and then putting on weight because of all of that. Oh, by the way, I forgot about weight. I mean, gosh, how could I even forget that? But hey, you guys, I'm sorry, but that's one of the big symptoms of adrenal fatigue is putting on weight because you're so inflamed. Something that I had a real challenge with my New York clients, because in New York, everybody's like, go, 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 right? And the idea of slowing down is kind of not cool in New York. So yet these women had all these problems with weight. And when I asked them to sleep more, they're like, I think the perception was that I would expect you to give me like calorie counting or point counting or some special diet while I'm super stressed out, but I want to lose that weight, right? It doesn't quite work that way. So, Yes, over-exercising can be a huge contributor towards adrenal fatigue. And one of the ways you know is that when you go and exercise and you come back and you're tired afterwards, that's your sign that you might be having adrenal fatigue going on. So tired after exercising. Exercise should be rejuvenating. You should be feeling really revived and energized. If you're feeling tired, that's a bad sign. It also means that you need to back off. I'm not saying don't exercise. It's just the solution is that you've got to slow down and pick things like Tai Chi, swimming, hiking, right? And really minimize cardio, especially things like long distance running, long distance biking. I'm not a fan of like CrossFit and all that crazy stuff and somebody's got adrenal fatigue, and especially that everybody pushing each other. And, which I think is a wonderful community spirit that CrossFit creates, but I've also seen people getting severely injured and feeding their adrenal fatigue because they don't want to give up in front of their peers. So not my favorite thing to do. Another source of adrenal fatigue is systemic infection. So people with Lyme disease, people with EBV have a lot of issues, can have issues with it can translate to adrenal fatigue. So you need to find those out. And to be honest with you, these infections so many times like fly under the radar. It's kind of hard to know, but when you work with an integrative physician and you kind of know when there's systemic stuff going on, when you've tried a lot of things, you've taken care of your digestion, you're sleeping, you're trying to sleep well, right? You've changed your diet, right? You're doing all the supplements, and yet you're still exhausted. And so, a good physician, an integrative physician would then run a whole bunch of tests on Lyme, on EBV, various other infections, just to rule that out. So, another thing that can contribute towards adrenal fatigue is lack of sleep. I know, and you guys are like, oh, but sleep, like, do I have time to sleep? Or I can't sleep. So, and that's going to be one of the solutions for adrenal fatigue is actually the most healing happens when you sleep. And that can be, somebody mentioned earlier about taking naps during the day, and that's perfectly fine. That's actually a great thing to do. Can I share with you guys when I used to work in advertising, live in China for many years, I got totally burned out. And this was in 2008 when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's, and I had adrenal fatigue and estrogen dominance, didn't know about them because there was no people like me back then to tell me. And, and intuitively, I knew that if I don't give up this toxic job, I'm going to kill myself. So I gave up the job, I got transferred to the United States, I went to nutrition school, blah, 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 blah. But when I first gave up my job, I took like 5 months off to travel, to do like meditation in India. I went to a journalist school in London, right? And, bumped around in Spain and the South for like a month, rented a house, had friends come over, right? And during the 5 months, I slept, especially the first 2 months, I slept like 12 hours a day. I thought I had cancer. Like how I knew little about health back then, but I was like, I must have cancer. All I'm doing is sleeping. But, I'm glad I did because it was intuitively, I knew that I needed to do that in order to, there was something, like I was so exhausted at the core after living in China, that the work, the travel, the pollution, that just living in China was not easy life. And so sleep was really a huge part of my recovery. So, I've done a lot of, there's been a lot of content we have about sleep, how to improve it. You need to figure out your sleep, because if you don't, then you're never going to achieve adrenal recovery. And I talk a lot about sleep. If you go to my website, hormonesbalance.com, just look at sleep. We have got 2 long articles on that. And I think I had also done sleep segment, like a live Q&A. Lisa, can you remind me if I've done the sleep Q&A on the live calls here? If we have, you could just post the link to the sleep video. So, there's a lot of things you can, many of you will say, how can I sleep when I can't sleep? Like, you're asking me to sleep to recover my adrenals, but I can't fall asleep, or I'm waking in the middle of the night. So there's various reasons to that, and you need to figure that out, because you need to get quality sleep, period. That's when your body starts recovering. This is where your adrenals start recovering. I want to mention two more things that are causations before we talk about solutions. The other one is, your diet can be a contributor to it. So living off coffee, living off sugar, and living off inflammatory foods, like if you're still eating gluten and corn and soy and dairy, right? All of them are hugely inflammatory, very taxing for the adrenals. I would not say that, coffee alone will give you adrenal fatigue, but any form of stimulant will certainly make it worse. Okay, so there you have it. Last one I want to talk about that can be causation for adrenal fatigue, and that's certainly the case I'm dealing with right now, and that is chronic pain. What I had just discovered is that I was actually born with underdeveloped hips, and I was an athlete, semi-professional athlete for most of my life, which is another a factor contributing towards adrenal fatigue. And I've come to a point when my hips are basically ruined. I'm announcing this for the first time here on a public call. I'm getting a double hip replacement on August 28th. So it's a major operation. But, I'm hopeful and I think I'm going to be better than ever before. So what I want to just share with you is that when you have such chronic pain, and I don't need to tell you, I have bone on bone, for example, it hurts tremendously. I can't stand for more than 2 hours. I can't walk. And I'm not gonna, you can just imagine. So what happens with pain is exhausting. Pain is a huge, is hugely depleting on the adrenals as well. And so when you're in chronic pain, your adrenals are gonna be pooped. I'm doing everything I can today to mitigate the adrenal. So I'm doing stuff that I'm going to talk about in the next minute about solutions in order to support my adrenals while going through that pain. I've got another 3 months to deal with this, and then probably another 3 months of recovery. But yeah, that's what I want to just share with you. So if you're having pain, then it is something that is an issue, right? That can be contributing towards adrenal fatigue. So let's talk about solutions. I'm sorry that the thing has been. Let's see. Robin is saying no volume. Can you guys hear me now? Can you just confirm it's all good? Technology is technology. Sometimes we have hiccups. So can you guys hear me now? So I want to talk about strategies here on what to do to support your adrenals, right? And the first thing you want to deploy a two-pronged approach. On one hand, you want to add things to support your adrenals. On the other hand, you want to do things to remove and then and add things that support the adrenals, right? So it's a two-pronged approach. Okay, cool. Charlotte is saying you can hear me. Okay, fine. So the first thing we want to do is avoid stimulants, right? Because the adrenals are already pretty overstimulated because of all the stuff going on. So stimulants I'm talking about is, the first thing I'm going to say is the biggest stimulant, the biggest drug in the world that people do not want to admit to, because I know many of you are addicted, and that's going to be your coffee, okay? And I know many of you are like, you want to shoot me right now, poo, like, I'm logging out of this call. In fact, I can see I just lost 30 people on the call when I said coffee. And if you really cannot give it up, then I would say do not ever drink coffee on an empty stomach. Cushion it off, have breakfast first, especially with some fat, fiber, and protein. Only then have your coffee. That will be a great way of mitigating that, so that there is at least fat and protein that mitigate the stimulation of the coffee. But it's that's a huge one. Sugar and alcohol are the other two. Adrenals hate those stimulants because that's what decaf, Susan is saying. Yeah, decaf is fine. And then on the other hand, and then also what you want to also avoid is over-exercising, right? So I think I already talked about that in the causation segment. The things that's most therapeutic is sleep, rest, having a nap in the middle of a day. And you know what? Really, if anybody tells you that, napping is like a lazy man's thing and all that, just tell them to go to hell and do your thing that feels good to your body. because napping is just a wonderful, but I mean, don't sleep like an hour and a half and during the day, because that's going to disrupt your night's sleep, right? But if you do a 15 to half an hour nap during the day, that just really make you feel rejuvenated and vibrant again, right? Your adrenals are going to love it. So please do that as much as you can. Try to sleep as much as you can without an alarm clock. So for example, if your natural wake time is 7 o'clock and you need to have your 8 to 9 hours of sleep, count it backwards, go to sleep at what does it make it? So let's say if you need 8 hours of sleep, you go to bed at 11. In fact, you go to bed at 10, so you give yourself time to wind down and then hit the sack. Let's talk about botanicals and vitamins. So the vitamins that are really important in terms of replenishing when you have adrenal fatigue is when you have adrenal fatigue, you're burning like crazy through B vitamins, vitamin C, and magnesium. Those are the trio, right, that you need to replenish. So B vitamins, so B complex, especially B6, vitamin C. I like camu, CAMU, half a teaspoon a day, gives you 250% more of vitamin C than the RDA. And then magnesium, I did a whole magnesium call, so listen to that if you want to know the type. In short, I like magnesium glycinate and citrate if it doesn't give you a diarrhea. So those are the three the vitamins and minerals. Now, many of you here have been asking about botanicals. Let me just answer some questions. Jennifer's saying, for me, black tea was how I weaned myself off coffee. I didn't find it as bad with how I felt. That's great. Jennifer, just to let you know, though, black tea still has caffeine, so does matcha, so does green tea. So, it's still less than coffee, which is kind of great, although it depends what kind of coffee you were drinking before. But I just wanna put it out there that black tea also contains caffeine. Stephanie saying, boo, no coffee, but so hard to get off it completely. Stephanie, I hear you. And, I did a barista course when I lived in Seattle. So, I love my coffee. I grew up with coffee. I used to have a $3,000 coffee machine at home. So, I hear you, sister. But if you want to get well, you do what you need to do. And I tell you, once you get off coffee, the energy levels are going to be so much higher and distributed evenly across the day. You'll be surprised. But you're going to have a bit of a wean-off thing. The first 2 days, for me, was 2 weeks. I was like, I want to shoot myself. It was hard. But you can wean yourself off as well. You don't need to go cold turkey the way I've done it. So let's talk about botanicals. So botanicals, there's some really great adaptogens. Adaptogens means that if your adrenals are low, they will help you bring them up. If the adrenals are overstimulated, it calms the adrenals down. So I have two favorite botanicals. One is called ashwagandha, which I'm sure many of you have heard of it. And the fastest way for it to work is in a tincture form. So if you go to any health store, if you go to Whole Foods, if you join my program, Herbs for Balance, we teach you there how to do your own ashwagandha tincture with some additional secret herbs. But in the meantime, just go and get the the ashwagandha tincture. The other, the interesting thing about adaptogens is that one person can respond really well to one adaptogen and not another. So for example, I respond really well to ashwagandha. I feel like within 2-3 days, I'm already feeling like the pick me up, but it's not the kind of caffeinated pick me up, but it's like your whole body just feels nourished and lifted, that kind of feeling, right? So I love ashwagandha for that. But, for some people, these adaptogens like ashwagandha might not work for you. And so the other thing you might consider is my other favorite is called rhodiola. You spell it Rhodiola, rhodiola. And, people have amazing results with rhodiola. Same thing, it can be done in a tincture form and same as the ashwagandha. I'm personally not a fan of those combo things that they have, like ashwagandha and rhodiola, licorice and this and that, because sometimes it just doesn't, you don't really know what's working in there. And I found that when you do go for single herbs, it's actually more powerful. Combined with also the replenishing of the vitamins and minerals. One just word of warning, licorice is also another great one, a great adaptogen, although it tends to be more utilized for stage 3 adrenal fatigue. Some women get stimulated by licorice. Like, for example, if I have licorice after, say, 3 p.m., I won't be able to fall asleep really nicely and I feel overstimulated. So we want to be really careful with licorice, but it's great for stage 3 adrenal fatigue, especially when you do it first thing in the morning. If you have high blood pressure, you also do not want to be doing licorice, okay? So there are some people, Susan let me go to the questions. Great, so Robin is saying ashwagandha makes me sleepy. There you go. She's responding to it differently than, like I feel lifted up, right? So Robin, one thing is that you could do it at night, or just try rhodiola, as an alternative. Robin is saying, okay, so Susan Rector is saying, take ashwagandha right now. One of my things I add when stressful deadlines. Awesome. Yeah, that's a really great way of sort of replenishing your adrenals, right? So instead of pooping them out, you proactively add things in, which is a really great idea to do. Linda is saying, Jaya makes a great adrenal product with ashwagandha. That's true. I love Jaya. Magnesium malate helps my pain. Wendy's saying magnesium malate is one of the great forms of magnesium as well. You guys are very well informed. Thank you, and I'm so glad you're sharing. I miss the flavor of coffee more than anything else, Agnieszka is saying. So Agnieszka, one of the things you could do is there is a recipe. I don't know whether, are you doing a Cooking for Balance program with us? Because one of the recipes we have there is called Better Than Coffee. And using dandelion, burdock, and I think carob is something that tastes like coffee, but it's not caffeinated. But it really has that roasted, bitter taste to it, richness to it, which a lot of people miss. So you can make it. I'm actually going to make a video. I still haven't, believe it or not, you guys, I still haven't unpacked my kitchen fully. Because I'm in pain. I'll be honest with you. This pain has been so exhausting. It's not funny. It's also because it's a really large area. It's 2 hips, and so I've been dragging my feet on unpacking. I normally get things done really quickly. I'm a doer, so like I'll get into a new house within a week, 10 days. Just do a couple of runs to places and get things done, and I unpack really quickly. This time around, I've just been like 3 weeks, and I'm still like have very little motivation to do that. But that's normal. It's normal when you are in pain. It's normal when you have adrenal fatigue. And also my neurotransmitters. That's the other thing with pain and adrenal fatigue, is that adrenal fatigue can also deplete a lot of your neurotransmitters that are giving you, like dopamine, serotonin, GABA, norepinephrine, epinephrine, which really gives you the sense of joy, endorphins, which give you the sense of joy and motivation and calmness, and so that's what I was saying earlier. The adrenals can really pull everything down with them. So the other thing I want to just address before we head out for the weekend is the granulars. So you might have come across granulars that are made of the same way thyroid medication, some thyroid meds are actually made of desiccated pig or cow's thyroid, and then that's blended into a hormone replacement therapy, or they call it thyroid meds, even though they're not really meds. Is the same thing can be done with adrenals, and you have adrenal fatigue. We have adrenal granulars, right? So that's a possibility. I am not the biggest fan of them, because when you do that, then you're shutting down your adrenal's ability of producing or desire to produce their own cortisol on its own. So when somebody has got like adrenal fatigue stage 3, and when you're just not producing and adrenals are really pooped out, granulars are a really great way temporarily to bring up the levels. And instead of exhausting the adrenal. So you need to work with a really skilled practitioner who understands how to work that, because you don't want to stay on them for life. They're never going to be the same as your own cortisol. So I would just want to caution you that to really be careful with that. I think it's that, please don't do a check with yourself. Like, are you going in a path of replacing meds as a quick solution with a supplement as a quick solution, right? Or granular as a quick solution, rather than be addressing all the things I talked about: infections, sleep, over-exercise, trauma from the past, chronic pain you're experiencing, whatever it is. So you know what I'm saying here, right? And as you guys know, I am not a gimmicks person. I'm not interested in giving you like 1, 2, 3 solutions, go, right? It really can be more complex, and I think that's the reason why many of you are here today. One more thing I want to talk about before actually close the call is diagnostics. So some of you here asked, like, how do I know I have adrenal fatigue? You definitely, through the symptoms I described, that's a huge indicator. If you want proof, which can be a good idea, there's two ways of testing, saliva or urine. Saliva is something you can actually order yourself. You can go to this website called Canary Club, so it's CANARY club.org. And there's a saliva test you can order for cortisol that gives you an idea of what's going on. There is a new technology today called the Dutch test, DUTCH, that does through cortisol analysis through urine, and that's a much more precise one. It does, however, require for you to have a practitioner. You can order it yourself from DutchTest.com, but to interpret that, you need to have a physician or a practitioner who specializes in that. And if you're willing to do that, then if you need help with interpreting that, I have wonderful practitioners I can refer you to for a consult. All you have to do is just email us at support@hormones with an S, hormonesbalance.com, and we'll hook you up with the right people, because I don't do consults anymore. So, hey, you guys. So, I'm gonna grab some water. Was this helpful? Lynn Siri is saying my vitamin B12 got really high. So Lynn, one thing you might want to do is you need to check your methylation pathways. You can do that through a simple blood test called MTHFR. Let's see. Ashwagandha bothers my stomach too. Robin is saying. Okay, well, seems like ashwagandha is not your thing. Then just try other ones. Do the adrenals need to work harder when you don't have a thyroid? Not necessarily. Sorry to hear about your surgery. Yeah, that's okay. I'm gonna be a bionic, new, revived, energetic woman after this. Okay, a lot of people are saying this was helpful. I'm glad that this was helpful. Awesome. That's why I'm doing those calls. Cedar Mitchell is asking matcha tea. So I love matcha tea, but it is actually high in cortisol, caffeine. Do you guys know that 1 teaspoon of matcha tea is the same thing as 1 shot of espresso? So so that you know. Let's see what other good questions, you guys. I stopped taking my B vitamins complex and methyl smart supplements, and then started having heart flutters. Is this adrenal or thyroid? It could be either, actually. So I would suggest go back to your B vitamins. Ashwagandha, okay. What about pregnenolone, Susan, after saying? So that's a great question, Susan. You know, I would resort to pregnenolone if you've exhausted all the other options. So, you know, one thing I don't like about doing hormones straight up like that, I mean, pregnenolone is great because it's a precursor for everything. It's for your DHEA, testosterone, estrogens, progesterone, cortisol, right? So it's the mother hormone for all these hormones. The problem with that is that you are kind of ignoring all these other things I talked about, you know, and so taking pregnenolone while you're not sleeping, while you're drinking, while you're living off coffee, while you're allowing stress to be happening, right? Kind of, you know, I have a bit of a problem with that. But I am a big proponent of taking pregnenolone small doses, as small as possible, when you had addressed all these other issues and things still aren't happening, and then going on pregnenolone. Plus, weaning yourself off those things aren't easy. I eat asparagus, it helps my adrenals. Okay, that's quite something. What is your thought on candida? Kristen is asking. Well, candida is a huge topic, and I think I did a call on candida as well. You might want to check it out. Well, that's like, Kristen, it's a huge yeast infection that can really be causing so much of havoc in the body. In fact, I don't know anybody who's got a good health while having adrenal fatigue. I'm glad many of you have been finding this helpful. Andrea Britannic is asking, can you heal adrenals, candida and adrenals at the same time? Well, it kind of depends what else is. I think, Andrea, I recognize your name. I know there's a lot of other stuff you've got going on. So I don't want to comment like that because I really, as a practitioner, like I would need to see the full picture. I would really recommend for you to work with an integrative physician, and we can recommend some people who work remotely on seeing your full picture and then structure a plan of what to do next. Because it's not just adrenals or candida. I know you've got other stuff going on. Okay, you guys, where do we find your calls? Linda Leon is asking. You can find them on hormonesbalance.com, which is my website, and on top navigation there is Friday Q&As, and then the whole repository of calls is there. We've got like, I don't know, many of them. All right, you guys, I'm gonna be chowing off to start the weekend and do some work before the weekend starts. And you can see my office is finally unpacked. I've got this beautiful pine tree right in front of my windows, so I've decided to set up the calls in front of my window for you guys. Low salt diet, okay, while dealing with adrenal fatigue. Great question, Randy. No, it's not. I'm glad you asked. Unless somebody's got hypertension, which most people with adrenal fatigue actually don't, then no, you actually, if you're craving salt, you want to be adding the salt in, because that's really is going to help your adrenals a lot, minerally speaking. But also, remember I was talking about, I don't know if you heard me talk about aldosterone, which is that hormone that regulates your potassium, all your potassium, your sodium levels, and your blood pressure. And so when you're craving salt, your body's telling you, I need support to bring the blood pressure up because the adrenals aren't producing enough aldosterone. That's the pathway. All right, you guys, I hope this is helpful. Find something to do this weekend, and that really helps you and nourishes your adrenals. One thing you can do for your adrenals, especially when there's still stress going on and stuff, is bring in something that really is pleasurable. You know, so on one hand, you're exhausting the adrenals, but on the other hand, you're kind of like giving yourself really nice, something pleasurable. Getting a massage, going for a nice walk, connecting with a friend who is a really nurturing friend, getting an orgasm. Believe it or not, it's actually great for the adrenals because it's oxytocin. Those are some of the strategies. Pet a dog, get a cat, hug. Those are some of the things that we can do to help our adrenals. All right, you guys, thanks so much. And I will see you next Friday at the same time, which is, I think it's 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. Until then, bye.